Welcome to NACTV Reads the News. My name is Englund, and I'm one of many volunteers that help create programming for our station. NACTV can be seen on MTS Channel 30 or 1030, Westman Cable Channel 17, Bell Satellite Channel 592, or online at nactv.tv. These programs are made possible by our volunteers, staff, advertisers, and donations made by you, the viewers. If you are enjoying your NACTV experience, please consider supporting us by either donation or volunteering. You can contact our office at 204-476-2639 or at NACTV at wcgwave.ca. Our paper this week is heavily slanted toward the election. Neepawa and area head to the polls. We are just a few days away from one of the most important elections in Canadian history as we elect members of the House of Commons for the 45th Canadian Parliament. Before you go to the polls and decide on the future of Canada, inform yourself on our local candidates and what they and their political party stand for. Inside this week's banner and press, we asked each candidate within the Riding Mountain District 5 questions that have local and national importance. We have taken those unfiltered responses and placed them on the pages of the banner and press in the order in which they arrived. If you are an undecided voter, those answers may be the tipping point for who represents you on the local and global stage. Election Day is Monday, April 25th, 2025. Neepawa reveals details for its 2025 financial plan by Owen Devereaux. Your property taxes are going to go up substantially, or go down substantially, or stay exactly the same. Really, it depends entirely on what your assessment is this year. On Tuesday, April 22nd, Neepawa Town Council reviewed the details for its 2025 financial plan. For this year's financial document, the residential property tax impact could include a 7% increase in the tax levy for local ratepayers on a $100,000 assessment value. In Manitoba, property is assessed at market value, the probable selling price, in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. These types of reassessment happen every 2 years. So in relation to the assessment and our taxes, Councillor Daryl Gerard, who also serves as the head of the Financial Committee, added a bit more context. He noted that for those people that saw no change in their assessed value of the house, they're not going to see a huge tax impact. Assessment is based on individual properties, and it's not just a flat 7% across all homes. That 7% actually reflects an overall revenue increase within our community. In some cases where we looked at individual tax with the way the new education property tax credit and Manitoba school tax rebate is working, some residents within the community will see their property taxes go down, noted Gerard. The 7% increase in assessment is sort of a blanket value that doesn't reflect individual cases. What's interesting about this year's financials, however, is that the mill rate, which is used to calculate the amount of property tax, is staying exactly the same as last year at 22.86 mills. What's happened is that Neepawa's assessment have increased by $36,464,600, or 7.36%. In layman's terms, the mill rate's number is the same as last year, but it is worth more than it was before. The general operating expenditures for the 2025 financial plan are estimated to be $12,389,581.65, while the utility operating funds are set for $6,397,119. The most notable spending from those funds this year will be going into our roads, both in terms of new streets and the repair of some of our old ones. Roughly 38% of spending will be focused on this local issue. We heard time and again that our residents want to see significant investment into roads. So roughly 38% of our budget goes to installing new roads, but also represents a significant change in how we're funneling dollars in our budget to try to start the process of addressing how our infrastructure has decayed over the last few years, Councillor Gerard said. Manager of Operations Denny Saquette expanded on the point, noting that along with the completion of the Hamilton Street extension, which has a $3,045,000 cost, there are other projects going ahead with a full road rehabilitation. 2nd Avenue between the blocks of Mill and Hamilton will be completely renewed. Adelaide from Lily to Walker will receive full renewal as well. So those two sections are quite substantial in terms of cost and the efforts we'll put into them. All notable surface works across the community that can be done with a patcher has also been planned. And carrying on with that, for this year, $143,566.75 has been set aside in grant requests, which will be divided between 10 local organizations. That's a decrease of $17,750 in total grant money compared to last year, and is being distributed among 5 fewer groups. For this year's supports, the largest individual grant distributed this year will be $103,000 and will be provided to the Yellowhead Center. That amount is the same as the volunteer-operated facility received last year. As for the 9 other organizations that will receive support this year from the municipality, they include $15,000 to Arts Forward in the form of 12 prepaid rentals for town rec events, $11,730 for the Beautiful Plains doctor recruitment, $5,000 Neepawa baseball and softball, $3,126.75 to Hand Senior Services, $1,700 to NACTV in the form of paid advertisements, $1,500 to Citizens on Patrol, $1,000 to Neepawa in Bloom and Horticultural Society, $1,000 to the Margaret Lawrence Home, and $500 to the Philcan Filipino Heritage Day celebrations in Neepawa. The first reading of the 2025 budget was given and approved on Tuesday, April 22nd. Second and third reading occur at the next council meeting on Tuesday, May the 6th. Right in the Centre by Ken Waddell, Canada's Future in Doubt. The Canadian election on Monday, April 28th is being billed as ranging from very important to the most crucial election in Canadian history. After mostly Liberal governments forever, the current attitude in Western Canada is one of exceeding frustration. Oil and minerals are in high demand and are an integral part of Western Canada. You can hardly tell by looking at federal policies. Oil is produced in all 4 prairie provinces, as are minerals. 2 western provinces have seaports, albeit the Hudson Bay port is only used minimally. Western Canada needs another pipeline and a liquefied natural gas LNG pipeline. It also needs more robust railroads. The Liberals still believe electric cars are the only way to go, as evidenced by $50 billion invested in battery factories. EVs may have a strong future, but currently EVs are at best inconvenient for long hauls and at worst dangerous in the winter. Like everyone wants to sit on the side of the road at 20 below zero so your EV can get towed to a charging station. Historically, Western Canada is an afterthought in Canadian politics. It always has been. In the 1860s, when the Maritimes strayed away somewhat from their traditional trade dependency on the eastern U.S. and pitched their lot in with Quebec and Ontario, they became eternally joined at the hip with Canada. BC was lured into Canada with the promise of a transcontinental railway that took 18 years to be built, from 1867 to 1885. And Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta were simply added into the Canadian coloring book version of matchmaking. The attitudes are deeply seated and the bitterness is swelling. Manitoba, or at least a small part of it, joined Canada in 1870. Canada's botching of the Manitoba addition to Confederation has been well documented. The Hudson Bay Company sold what became the early part of Manitoba to Canada. The feds just forgot to tell the locals. Big surprise. The ensuing fiasco created the Red River Rebellion, and any student of history has to feel a goodly amount of sympathy for the Métis and the handful of relatively new settlers who had begun to call Manitoba home in the 1800s. By 1905, when the Assiniboia Territory was to become a province, the cruel and calculating leaders of Ontario made sure Assiniboia was divided into 2 straight-line bordered chunks of land to guarantee that no other area would ever challenge Ontario for landmass dominance in Canada. If it had not been for the discovery of oil in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, the prairies would have remained even more subservient to Ottawa. I know this sounds bitter, but millions of dollars get thrust into Ontario and Quebec, while the 3 prairie provinces are left with poor roads, a deficient railway system, a tiny seaport in Manitoba, and a general disregard for the fact that a large amount of food is grown on the prairies to feed the rest of Canada. A former mayor once said that Toronto is the economic engine of Canada. Nobody seemed to mention to him where that engine got its fuel. So as Canada goes to the polls on April 28th, will anything change? If we have a Liberal government for another 5 years, things will have to change a lot, or the next federal election could lead to an exit vote. It's not ideal, but if Canada is to reach its huge potential, big changes need to occur. What has to be taken out of the budget to achieve the growth? Here's a few suggestions. Government waste needs to be reduced. Our medical system has to be fixed. Our politically correct snowflake attitude needs to go. A long list of changes need to happen, or this may be one of the last elections that Canada, as we know it, will ever have. Homebodies by Rita Friesen, The Servant's Heart. The walk through the Neepawa Riverside Cemetery brings me peace and provides a quiet place to reflect, meditate, and walk. Almost every walk provides the opportunity to exchange pleasantries with another walker, and at times opens the space for deep and meaningful conversations. Truly, I don't miss the perpetual flowers. They were prone to weeds, late frosts, droughts, and more often than not were the cause for grumbling and complaints. I do have a point, and I'm getting to it. It's the old-growth evergreens that inspire me. They too are aging, succumbing to windstorms and disease. Those rows of ancient pines hold the secrets of generations. I recall sitting at the kitchen table listening to Ken and Alice Harper share life experiences. Ken recalled going with his father, James Davidson Harper, and his grandfather, George Harper, with horse and wagon, out to the escarpment to dig out those trees, bring them back, plant them, and nurture them. If my memory serves me correctly, and it doesn't always, Ken also spoke of helping his dad and grandfather with the landscaping at the courthouse. After talking to a member of the Harper family, Mary Ellen, those memories were jogged. I sat down with the early Neepawa history book, Heritage, Neepawa Land of Plenty, 1883 to 1983. Riverside Cemetery, a place of beauty. Records are too few, information too scant. However, that which is recorded indicates that James Graham, a member of the first family of settlers, built his home on the land which is today Riverside Cemetery. In a few short paragraphs, it mentions significant headstones and monuments. The more recent history book, Beautiful Plains Story, 1883 to 2008, has a much more intensive and expansive detailing. One cannot help but be impressed upon entering the cemetery. The towering spruce trees and the smaller ones that have been sculptured to perfections greet many visitors. And the concluding paragraph, as you leave the cemetery, pause for a moment. Listen to the wind whispering through the needle-laden boughs of the spruce trees. Tribute is given to Nick Kaka for his 25 years as caretaker, and mention is made of Jack Follows, 41 years as caretaker. Caretaker is the correct word, for they cared deeply and devotedly for the site, the purpose, and their purpose. The beauty of the trees is exquisite. They are timeless and wondrous. There is mention of the original owners of the land and the record of its succession. There is mention of honorable men who cared for the sacred space. There is no mention of the family that planted the trees. Did they not wish recognition? Were they simply servants seeing a need and quietly meeting that need? I may never know. As I voiced my concerns to members of my community, two folks that I respect wondered if perhaps they hadn't had the power and influence that some others in the community held at that time. If that's the case, that's very wrong. Here I am, 100 years, give or take, later, still awed by the servant's heart. Here's to Ken, James, and George. Thank you for serving your community, my community. A Good Way to Live, Faithfully Yours by Neil Stroschein. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, the event leaves its impact. This event happened in the early 1960s when my parents, brothers, and I attended a family event hosted by my paternal grandparents. While my mom was in the house helping Grandma finish preparing the day's meal, my dad and I joined my uncles in Grandpa's garage to admire his new car. Some of my uncles thought the car was a little more luxurious than Grandpa usually bought, but another uncle said, let him enjoy it. It's probably the last car he will buy. Little did we know how true his words would be. Grandpa died a few months later. Fast forward 40 years. I am listening as a young person shares stories of dealing with physical impairment, overcoming obstacles, and learning valuable life lessons in the process. Of all the lessons shared, the one I will remember most clearly is, live each day as though it is your last, because one day it will be. Those words mean much more to me today than they did when I first heard them. Since January 2024, I have conducted funeral services for 4 close friends and 1 family member. 3 others from my wife's side of the family have also passed away, 2 from cancer. And while I am currently enjoying good health, I know just how quickly that can change. In this life, as we all know, there are no guarantees. In his letter to the Ephesians, St. Paul urges us to make the most of the time we have, because the days are evil. Ephesians 5:16. Here are some ways we can apply these words to our lives. First, strive for excellence. Note that I did not say perfection. To expect perfection from ourselves or others is to ask for something that none of us can give. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. So let's stop trying to be. We won't succeed. Excellence, however, is different. Excellence is doing the best we can with the resources we have been given. It's not an easy goal to achieve. It will require hard work and creativity, but it can be done, and we should not settle for anything less. Second, treat yourself and others with dignity and respect. Every person on this earth is a unique creation of an almighty and infinitely creative God, and as such is a person of infinite value. Every person has been given something to share with others that will help make this world a better place in which to live. Therefore, every person needs to be treated with utmost dignity and respect. Again, we should not settle for anything less. Third, trust God to do what you cannot. We are not miracle workers. We cannot be all things to all people. We cannot do everything that we are asked to do. We don't know it all, and not one of us, no matter what we may think, is always right. God wants us to be our best, give our best, and do our best. Then we must leave the results in His hands. He will take the things we say and do, energize them by His Spirit, and use them to produce lasting change in the lives of those we help each day. Jesus reminds us that without Him we can do nothing, but with Him and with His help there is nothing we cannot do. I can't think of a better way to live. Can you? Devotion, Why Are You Afraid? By Reverend Vlad Makiev, by the First Baptist Church. All of us have phobias, fears. We all face potentially life-threatening dangers every day, such as economic collapse, unemployment, debts, corruption, drunk drivers on the roads, thieves, viruses, corrupt and wicked politicians, and even fast food. If you read your Bible, I hope that some of you do, you have probably noticed that any time God called somebody to do a great task, he left them with this specific and direct command: fear not. Genesis 15:1, 46:3, Numbers 21:34, Deuteronomy 1:21, Joshua 8:1, Daniel 10:12, Matthew 1:20, Luke 1:30, Acts 27:24, Revelation 1:17. If you are a Christian, you have been specifically commanded by God to not be afraid. Christians are not allowed by Creator God, God of the Bible, to worry, be anxious, or dismayed. Philippians 4:6-7. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and petition with thanksgiving let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all comprehension, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Whenever we experience the irrational fear, it does not come from God, it comes from the devil. A spirit of fear is from the evil one, according to 2 Timothy 1:7. For God has not given us a spirit of timidity, but of power and love and self-discipline. Here is the thing: God will never call us to do something and then neglect to equip us for the assignment. In fact, the Bible is very clear. There is only one whom we are commanded to fear. It is a serious sin if we do not fear God. Matthew 10:28. And do not fear those who kill the body, but are unable to kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. The irrational fear is always caused by unbelief. We will always fear something in our life. We will either fear God, having proper reverence for who he is, or we will fear our life circumstances and the future. To cut a long story short, we will fear whatever we have put our trust in: security, possession, health, etc. A famous English preacher, Charles Spurgeon, delivered a sermon a long time ago. He entitled his message, "Fear Not." Let me share a quote with you from his sermon. "Make a man afraid, he will run at his own shadow. Make a man brave, and he will stand before an army and overcome them. He will never do much good in the world who is afraid of men. The fear of God brings blessings, but the fear of men brings a snare. Fear the Lord God who created this universe and gave you life through your parents. He is worthy of all praise and worship." Psalm 27:1. Yahweh is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Yahweh is the strong defense of my life. Whom shall I dread? Letters. Yes, the CBC is a keeper. To lose the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, CBC, is inconceivable. This is Canada. The CBC is freedom of speech. The CBC is freedom. Mr. Polyev has promised to defund the CBC, not French language, Radio Canada, but English language, CBC. A CTV news article about a survey conducted by McGill University found that overall only 11% of those who responded to the survey in late August and early September 2024 were in favor of defunding the public broadcaster. Some say the CBC is too liberal leaning, that because the present government is liberal, the CBC is biased. They obviously never heard Justin Trudeau being torn to shreds by the at-issue political panel on CBC TV's The National. Critics of CBC have referred to mainstream media as fake news when fake news came into vogue. This was interesting since the same anchors, same reporters and journalists of the highest caliber were performing their work, many for decades, before fake news came into being. Were these top-notch professionals suddenly losing their integrity? Rather, they were, more than ever, devoted to their calling, knowing what was suddenly at stake. From 10:37 to 10 a.m. weekday mornings, CBC Radio's The Current with Matt Galloway provides us with information from reliable sources, interviews with people on the ground or as close to it as possible. Just one example of this has been the excellent coverage by The Current on the Russian war against Ukraine. The Current is literally that and is intensely informative on weekdays. In the last week, CBC TV's Adrian Arsenault has visited places like Red Deer, Alberta, to hear from people of various backgrounds and political views. This was educational. The Sunday Magazine on CBC Radio from 9 to 11 a.m. is another interesting, very informative show. Quirks and Quarks on CBC Radio is an excellent science show. Cross Country Checkup, 3 to 5 p.m. on Sundays, is a call-in show. Recently, it included our American neighbors, inviting them to call in also with excellent response for Canada from them. This was heartwarming. We need more than ever to know what is happening around the world. Mr. Polyev seems to personally dislike the CBC. His bias is strong. Does that mean he has the right to dismantle it? I can't think of anything else that is so inclusive and brings the entire country and world together as the CBC. The educational value, cultural value that we gain is invaluable. Countless times one feels uplifted when listening or watching. We gain tolerance and compassion for each other. Is anything more powerful than that? By Kathy Roblewski, Neepawa, Manitoba. Out of Helen's Kitchen, Creameries and Cinnamon Loaf. This is an article outlining the history of the Neepawa Creamery and the Velvet Dip ice cream. Local business leaders cite affordable housing and tariff as concerns as the election looms, by Josh Jackson. And now the candidates in their own words. Dan Masier, Conservative Party of Canada. Why do you think you would make the best representative in Ottawa for the Riding Mountain constituency? As a lifelong farmer and former president of Keystone Agricultural Producers, I understand the challenges rural families face because I've lived them. For the past 6 years as your MP, I've delivered real results, both nationally and locally. That includes passing a law to hold internet companies accountable for misleading service claims, bringing passport clinics directly to our communities, and consistently delivering support where it's needed most. As the Shadow Minister for Rural Economic Development and Connectivity, I've held the Liberals accountable for their policies that have disproportionately harmed rural Canada, like their gas vehicle ban and fertilizer restriction policy. I'm also the only candidate knocking on thousands of doors to meet voters face to face. I believe if you're going to ask for people's vote, you need to show up and put in the work. What, in your opinion, is the biggest single topic or issue within Riding Mountain that you would fight for if elected? The biggest issue is affordability. That is not by accident. It is the direct result of policies that have punished work, taxed productivity, and driven up the cost of everything from food to fuel. On top of that, our economy has become dangerously dependent on the United States. The recent tariffs from Donald Trump are unjustified and unfair to Canadians, but it is also a wake-up call. After a decade of government policies that blocked development and drove away investment with anti-resource legislation like Bill C-69, higher taxes, and over-regulation, we now find ourselves overexposed to decisions made in the United States. A Conservative government will bring serious solutions to restore affordability and rebuild our economic independence to put Canada first for a change. We will cut income taxes by 15% for the average Canadian, putting nearly $2,000 a year back into the pockets of working families. We will remove the federal sales tax on new homes to help families save up to $65,000 and to build more homes. For seniors, we will raise the tax-free income threshold to $34,000 and protect OAS, GIS, and CPP by keeping the retirement age at 65. To encourage investment and strengthen Canada's economy, we will introduce the Canada First Reinvestment in Tax Cut. This policy will eliminate capital gains taxes when proceeds are reinvested in Canada. Whether it is a farmer selling land and reinvesting in equipment, or a small business owner expanding another Canadian enterprise, This tax cut rewards growth and keeps capital working in Canada. Beyond tax relief, we will finally get big projects built to create jobs and bigger paychecks for our people. That means repealing Bill C-69, establishing a national energy corridor, and ensuring major infrastructure gets the approvals needed to move forward. To ensure every dollar works harder for Canadians, Conservatives will also cut red tape and government waste. We will eliminate 25% of federal regulations within 2 years and pass a 2-for-1 law, requiring 2 regulations be repealed for every new one introduced. Aside from the biggest issue, what is a personal issue that you care deeply for and are passionate about regarding this year's election? Crime. I recently visited a family farm near McGregor that was the target of a terrifying break-in by armed criminals. Sadly, stories like this are becoming too common. This is the direct result of federal catch and release laws that let repeat offenders walk free. A Conservative government will get tough on crime. We will repeal catch and release laws like Bills C-5 and C-75 and introduce 3 strikes and you're out legislation. Criminals convicted of 3 serious violent offenses will face a minimum of 10 years up to life in prison. They will not be eligible for bail, house arrest, or early parole. We will also bring in life sentences for the worst criminals, including fentanyl traffickers, gun smugglers, and human traffickers. A Conservative government will end the failed experiment of legalizing hard drugs, instead investing in real treatment and recovery programs to bring our loved ones home drug-free. No parent should have to worry about their child stepping on a needle at the playground or being exposed to deadly drugs. Another area of growing concern is financial crime, especially the rising wave of scams targeting seniors. That's why I am proud of our commitment to implement the strongest anti-fraud protections in Canadian history. Under a Conservative government, banks and telecom providers will be required to implement real-time scam detection systems, block fraudulent activity, and report the number of scams prevented and reimbursements issued. We will also introduce a mandatory 24-hour delay on high-risk transactions in senior accounts to allow for verification before money is lost. What is your party's stance on Bill C-18, the Online News Act, and if elected, would your government repeal it? Bill C-18 has been a failure. More importantly, it is part of a troubling pattern of government interference in what Canadians can see, read, and share online. If you've noticed that you can no longer access or share news articles on Facebook in Canada, this bill, passed by the Liberals, is the reason why. It was intended to help Canadian journalism, but it backfired. Social media platforms responded by blocking news content entirely, limiting access to important information and hurting local media. Alongside Bill C-10, this legislation reflects a government more focused on controlling the flow of information than protecting the free exchange of ideas. The internet should be open and free. Canadians, not government, should decide what news they read and share. Why do you believe your political party is the best option for leading, guiding Canada's mandate for the next 4 years? Because we need change in this country. After 10 years under the Liberals, Canadians are paying the price. Violent crime is up 50%. Housing costs have doubled. Groceries, fuel, and everyday essentials are more expensive than ever. And yet the Liberals want a 4th term and 4 more years of the same failed policies. Why would we reward the same government that got us into this mess? Our economy has been stagnant for a decade. Investment is leaving. Projects are stalled. People are working harder but falling farther behind. Canada is full of potential, but the Liberals have prevented Canadians from buying an affordable home on a safe street under a proud flag defended by a strong military. As your local Conservative candidate, my campaign is focused on fighting for rural Canada. Rural communities have been neglected and even punished by Ottawa. I'm running to be a voice in Parliament for the hardworking families, farmers, ranchers, and small business owners who keep our country moving. A Conservative government will lower taxes, make housing more affordable, get big projects built, support skilled workers, get tough on crime, and stop wasteful spending that drives up the cost of living. It's time to put Canada first for a change. And Andy Maxwell, New Democratic Party of Canada. Why do you think you would make the best representative in Ottawa for the Riding Mountain constituency? The NDP are the conscience of Parliament and are truly there to represent the best interests of ordinary Canadians, not the very wealthy and corporations. Although never having formed the federal government, they brought you universal health care and most recently the beginnings of universal pharmacare and dental care and $10 a day child care, which all make life more affordable and secure for us. Neither majority Liberal nor particularly Conservative governments would even think of doing that on their own. I support these initiatives and want to be part of that on behalf of the people of Riding Mountain constituency and all of Canada. I believe that the incumbent Dan Masier will ultimately be seen to have been on the wrong side of history, not progressive, just conservative. What, in your opinion, is the biggest single topic issue within Riding Mountain that you would fight for if elected? Trump. He threatens us all, our sovereignty as Canadians. As tariffs beget tariffs, he threatens affordability and jobs in agriculture and manufacturing and beyond. And he threatens our shared environment. That is why it is so important to send New Democrats like me to Ottawa to make sure that when Team Canada is negotiating with him, there are people in Ottawa who care about regular Canadians and their families. Aside from the biggest issue, what is a personal issue that you care deeply for and are passionate about regarding this year's election? Lifelong learning and promoting healthy lifestyles for all to offset the costs to health care, such as the epidemic of type 2 diabetes, which can lead to the majority of dialysis patients. It's why I put in 7 volunteer years with my team to try and get a recreation and wellness center for the Swan River Valley. Tied to this is avoiding war, where civilians are increasingly sacrificed. Many wars are ongoing as we speak. Never again should not be just about November 11th. And peace on earth and goodwill to all is not just a seasonal greeting. It means every day, lest we forget. My dad's uncle, Andrew Maxwell, was killed the 17th of May, 1917, in the war to end war, now known as World War I. I have been to his grave in Roquefort Military Cemetery north of Arras in northern France. It is very sobering to see your name on a tombstone from a forgotten war and know that more are coming unless we learn the lessons of history and do not appease transgressors. The International Criminal Court is there for a reason. There are not enough hospitals in Canada and elsewhere in peacetime, let alone in war. Keep everyone healthy. What is you and your party's stance on Bill C-18, the Online News Act, and if elected, would your government repeal it? The NDP is highly supportive of Bill C-18, which protects the interests of newspapers like this one and other media outlets invested in publishing the facts, not propaganda. It is designed to get transnational corporations like Google to pay their fair share. Why do you believe your political party is the best option for guiding Canada's mandate for the next 4 years? New Democrats have a history of fighting for the things that Canadians care about, from our public health care system to dental care and pharmacare. When Canadians vote for the NDP, life gets better for working and middle-class families and keeping life affordable. We need to ensure that the NDP is in Ottawa to fight for regular people in negotiations with Donald Trump. Candidate Terry Hayward, the Liberal Party of Canada. Why do you think you would make the best representative in Ottawa for the Riding Mountain constituency? Riding Mountain constituency is the second largest electoral district in Manitoba. It has a rich history of rural development and economic activity. The area boasts a unique blend of industries, including agriculture, forestry, and fisheries. There is a natural beauty to the region, which includes Riding Mountain National Park. With this in mind, I bring a wealth of experience and skills to be the best representative for Riding Mountain constituency in Canada's Parliament. I hail from a rural setting, having been born and raised in Brandon, with short stays as a child in Pilot Mound and Holland, Manitoba. It was in Holland where I started my schooling before continuing my education in Brandon. As a teenager, I went off to the University of Manitoba to study agriculture. Upon graduation, I joined what was then known as Agriculture Canada, starting a career that spanned 33 years. Over my years working in agriculture, I experienced many aspects of agriculture and rural development across the nation. This period was interrupted by a 5-year assignment I accepted with our Foreign Affairs Department. I spent 2 years as a Canadian diplomat at the Canadian Embassy in Washington, D.C., working in agricultural, food, fisheries, and forestry policy. This was followed with 3 years working in trade promotion of Canadian goods and services based out of the Canadian High Commission in Wellington, New Zealand. A number of positions and roles I had with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada make me extremely qualified to be Riding Mountain's Member of Parliament. These positions include Executive Director of the National Grains Bureau, where I worked on the development and implementation of the GRIP and NISA programs, precursors to the current Agri-Stability Program. Executive Director of the Federal Rural Secretariat, where it was recognized rural activity is not only tied to one industry such as agriculture, but covers a range of activities and support services required by the people living in rural areas. An Executive Director of the National Farm Products Council, working with the feather industries operating under the Canadian Supply Management System. I have spent the past 34 years with my partner Donna, living and raising our 2 sons on the family farm we brought back into the family after it had been sold a number of years before. Our sons were raised with their grandparents on the farm next door, and now my grandchildren enjoy visits to the same farm to enjoy time with their great-grandmother. This brief resume outlines my rural roots, my work in agriculture, and my foreign experiences working for Canadians that will make me the best representative in Ottawa for the people and businesses of Riding Mountain. What is your opinion is the biggest single topic issue within Riding Mountain that you would fight for if elected? The biggest single issue Riding Mountain constituents raised with me during this campaign concern on the unjustified tariff actions being taken by United States President Trump and his administration. People from all sectors of the local economy are concerned with the impact these actions will and are having on their personal situation, as well as the local and national economies. Also of great concern to canola producers is the 100% tariff imposed by China. As the area's Member of Parliament, I would work with the government and the provinces to diversify and find the markets for our products, work to reduce interprovincial trade barriers, and ensure the concerns of our rural producers and manufacturers are taken into account when no policies and programs are developed. Aside from the biggest issue, what is a personal issue that you care deeply for and are passionate about regarding this year's election? The most important personal issue I care about deeply is our Canadian sovereignty. I am Canadian, a Manitoban, and a rural citizen. The relationship we have enjoyed for decades with our neighbor to the south has been fractured. Our once close neighbor opening talks of breaking our nation's economy. He covets our land, our water, and our mineral resources, and is willing to destroy our way of life. This election is critical to the future of Canada as we know it, and as we want our children and grandchildren to know and experience it. I will work tirelessly and cooperatively with all the members of the House of Commons, with all provinces and territories to protect our sovereignty. I will resist all efforts to weaken our position from within. Together we will be Canada strong. We will be the envy of the G7, and we will take care of each other. I will work with the people of Riding Mountain so they have open lines of communication with me to make their voices known and heard. It is critical the government is aware of local views, ideas, and proposed solutions. What is your party's stance on Bill C-18, the Online News Act, and if elected, would your government repeal it? The Online News Act was one piece of the Liberal government's digital agenda passed in the last Parliament. This legislation aims to ensure that dominant digital platforms compensate news businesses when their content is made available on their services. The Act creates a bargaining framework to ensure that platforms compensate the news businesses fairly. It encourages platforms to reach voluntary commercial agreements with a range of news businesses. I understand that Google Search is expected to meet the regulatory thresholds and be subject to this act. Its contribution will be $100 million in financial support annually, indexed to inflation, for a wide range of news businesses across Canada. Why do you feel your political party is the best option for guiding Canada's mandate for the next 4 years? The Liberal Party of Canada, under the guidance of Prime Minister Carney, is the best choice for Canadians this election. Prime Minister Carney showed his leadership immediately upon taking office to see Canada through the critical issues now facing our nation. He immediately initiated discussions with his provincial and territorial colleagues to address the issue of interprovincial trade barriers and seek ways to remove them as they negatively impact the economic well-being of our nation. This is a topic that has been discussed for decades, with little, if anything, happening to improve the situation. However, under his leadership, in cooperation with the premiers, things are getting done. Prime Minister Carney has undertaken to remove, by July 1st this year, all federal barriers that are impacting Canadian interprovincial trade. This has resulted in the provinces and territories looking to remove their barriers to interprovincial trade as well. Prime Minister Carney recognized quickly the threats being imposed on Canada by the United States. The imposition of unjust tariffs and threats to Canadian sovereignty were immediately addressed. Talks were undertaken to diversify our markets. Actions have been taken to lessen the dependency Canada has on American products. We have seen a wave of buy local initiatives, made in Canada initiatives, and more. The Liberal Party will ensure supports are in place for our agricultural producers and workers in affected industries when dealing with the impacts of the U.S. actions. Prime Minister Carney is a crisis manager with a proven track record. He is well positioned to lead a Liberal government working with all parties to protect Canada from external threats. The candidate Jim Oliver, People's Party of Canada. Why do you think he would make the best representative for the Riding Mountain constituency in Ottawa? The past several years have been the most divisive for Canadians in our long history. Now more than ever, we must unify Canada before the country that we love ceases to exist as we have known it. It is clear that bold, principled leadership is urgently needed. I am the best candidate to represent Riding Mountain in Ottawa for one simple reason: the PPC party and its policies. I am fully committed to the issues championed by Maxime Bernier and the People's Party of Canada, and I will make every effort possible to serve the constituency of my home riding and further their interests in Ottawa. I am the only candidate in the riding who opposes the harmful gender ideology being advanced in our schools, where our children are being taught that their bodies might be wrong and that drugs and surgery are the solution. This specious ideology is now being discussed with children as early as kindergarten. I am also the only candidate who speaks of repealing the unthinkable B-64, which makes it illegal for parents to challenge or discourage a child's desire to transition. Passed unanimously in December 2021, Bill C-4 had the full support of all parties, including the so-called Conservatives, who were responsible for fast-tracking it through the House in only 9 days. As well, I stand alone declaring that there is no climate emergency facing our world, and that taxing and limiting the freedoms of Canadians for the purpose of carbon reduction and the supposed defense of the planet will only lead to suffering. What, in your opinion, is the biggest single topic issue within Riding Mountain that you would fight for if elected? The issue of immigration reform remains a top priority for me and the PPC party, as the unchecked influx of newcomers has overwhelmed our economy, housing market, education system, healthcare, and social services. Since the inception of the People's Party, 2018, Max has advocated for reducing mass immigration and restoring the sensible management that existed prior to 2015. Today, 70% of Canadians agree that immigration levels are too high. We now propose a temporary moratorium on all new immigration until we can resolve the current crisis. Once accomplished, we shall return to a positive, well-managed immigration strategy that serves both Canada and future newcomers. Aside from the biggest issue, what is a personal issue that you care deeply for and are passionate about regarding this year's election? I am deeply committed to reopening the national discussion on the issue of abortion. With the exception of a few U.S. states, Canada is the only Western country that allows late-term abortion, even up until the moment of birth. We would make unavailable third trimester abortions and limit the ever-expanding MAID program to all but those facing imminent terminal illness. What is your party's stance on Bill C-18, the Online News Act, and if elected, would your government repeal it? The PPC rates freedom of expression as one of our highest values. Without it, I could not speak freely on these important issues. Bill C-18, which limits Canadians' ability to share news information on social media platforms, is but one measure the current government has implemented to stifle the voice of its citizens under the guise of supporting journalism. In reality, the bill is unpopular and has been broadly criticized by both Canadians and news agencies, as it serves neither and ultimately limits freedom. What do you believe your political party is the best option for the leading guiding of Canada's mandate for the next 4 years? Since 2015, the federal government has grown in size and payroll by more than 40%, without actually improving its operations or benefiting Canadians in any meaningful way. We intend to limit the federal government, returning power to the provinces and the people as outlined in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, reduce waste, federal overreach, and restore efficiency and accountability. The People's Party of Canada is the only party truly fighting for the future of our country. We are committed to protecting our sovereignty and the safety and prosperity of Canadians by ending our involvement with supranational organizations like the UN and WHO, and by implementing policies to foster growth, strengthen our economy, and improve the lives of every Canadian. I ask that you visit our website and read our platform. Consider the values that matter most to you and your family. I encourage all citizens, especially those who might not otherwise vote, to take a stand in this election and let your voice be heard. Now is the time. Vote with your conscience. Vote for your family, your faith, and your community. Vote with your heart. Let us not love in word or speech, but in deed and truth. The candidate Liz Clayton, Green Party of Canada. Why do you think you would make the best representative in Ottawa for the Riding Mountain constituency? I respect all the people who are running hard and sharing their ideas and their solutions for Riding Mountain. And while we might be coming from different places or offering up different solutions, there is one thing the collective opposition is not, and that is complacent. There's an old joke in rural Manitoba that you could run a yellow dog through the riding with a blue sign on it and people would vote for it. Well, I'm finding a lot of people here who want fresh representation and fresh ideas. The Parkland region is not just one kind of person and not just one kind of land. There is a diversity of people and economies and landscapes in Riding Mountain, and there are enough critical thinkers who see the bigger picture, who believe we should be investing more in local initiatives, developing our rich resources in partnership with those who are caretakers of the land, and doing it all with a goal to a cleaner, healthier future for ourselves and the generations to come. After 20 years living in rural Manitoba, I believe I am qualified to present our issues in Ottawa and maintain an open and respectful constituency presence here at home. What, in your opinion, is the biggest single topic issue within Riding Mountain that you would fight for if elected? The one thing I keep hearing as I travel through the riding is that people are frustrated with not having a voice in Ottawa. There was hope that would change when Trudeau swept into power in 2015 on a platform promise to introduce proportional representation. Do you remember how this promise was broken? Let me remind you. A few months after the election, we got a postcard in the mail asking us to go to a government website, log in, and do a survey on proportional representation. Then a few weeks later, it was announced that we wouldn't be going that way. That was it. Proportional representation gives voice to the full political spectrum and also forces parties to work in collaboration, not in endless competition. This system is used by 40 of 43 countries. If introduced, it will alleviate extreme political polarization because our current first-past-the-post system, the winner really does get to take it all. And all of us who do not have a representative in a party in power in Ottawa really do not have a voice, which isn't actually very democratic. There are so many other issues, like prohibiting absentee land speculators from buying up our land, and protecting our parklands from excessive clearing and draining by giving tax incentives to farmers who leave the wildlands be, and de-incentivizing land clearing by eliminating it as a tax deduction. Some of these issues cross into provincial and municipal territory, but the Green Party points to models of intergovernmental cooperation in other parts of the world, where all levels often work together on projects to benefit the electorate. Governments should be looking after the land and all the people on it as a long-term investment in the future of Canada. We have to support our local economies, our local businesses, our events, our arts, our cultural and historical places. We have to preserve the wild places that make this land unique. Aside from the biggest issue, what is a personal issue that you care deeply for and are passionate about regarding this year's election? I believe in a strong, independent Canada, from coast to coast to coast, with an economy built on innovation and a fearless dedication to renewable, clean energy. I remember the free trade debates of the 1980s and the concern that it would undermine 100 years of East, West, North development, and it did. The U.S. complains that we've been ripping them off. They wanted this. They sold us on this, and we all lost big time. Since NAFTA, all of North America has lost independence and economic opportunity as manufacturing in all sectors has moved offshore. In the North, we lost mines to global investors who shuttered our Canadian operations to move their interests to the cheaper labor markets. We are in danger right now of losing our supply management system, a system that works far more effectively and efficiently than free market farming, where mega dairy farms can't seem to control an oversupply of hormone-induced milk, and hundreds of thousands of chickens in close proximity are vectors for the avian flu. I don't know about you, but recently I woke up one morning, shook off the fear of the unknown, and actually felt liberated from having to walk lockstep into the future with the USA. They've been taking pot shots at our healthcare system, our education system, and our supply management system for decades. We've been forced to keep our elbows up as they try to infiltrate and undermine our public services, our commons, and siphon off our resources. A strong Canada begins in ridings like ours, where we have a great mix of recreation, farming, rural and urban amenities, small and medium and independent businesses and services, and not a lot of box stores. What is you and your party's stance on Bill C-18, the Online News Act, and if elected, would your government repeal it? Has Bill C-18 worked? It appears not. For nearly 2 years, Facebook has continued to block Canadian news rather than compensating for content. but vetted news gathering at the local, regional, and national levels is essential to create a public record of events, the truth, albeit sometimes biased, of our times. The Green Party has a number of policies to help our media outlets in the face of monolithic competition and content appropriation from American streaming sites. Our fair taxation policy prohibits Canadian businesses from deducting advertising costs on foreign-owned sites like Google and Facebook. We would introduce a digital service tax on App Store feeds and the monetization of consumer data, apply a corporate tax surcharge on U.S. tech giants, and apply the revenue to Canadian tech, broadband expansion, and Canadian independent journalism. Why do you believe your political party is the best option for leading, guiding Canada's mandate for the next 4 years? It is time for a global reset because the old ways clearly are not working. There are many responses to change. Some people think we should turn back the clock to a time they fondly call the good old days. But those days in truth were not good for everyone. And now the gap between the rich and the poor has widened to the point where even middle-income people are struggling to make ends meet. The Green Party of Canada has been studying issues and developing policies that matter to people and our finite planet for more than 40 years. We reconcile differences and egos to focus on the job at hand. We are fiscally responsible. Our leader, Elizabeth May, is intelligent, well-informed, knows how to work with others, and according to some recent memes, is fun to party with. There have been only 2 parties that have led Canada since Confederation. The last 8 years we've had the Liberals in power, while the Conservatives have been taking pages from American politics, dumbing down the message, playing personality politics, blaming everything on just one guy in a political system doesn't even have just one guy in charge, but rather a prime minister, first among equals. No matter how hard Poilievre tries to adopt gravitas in this time of economic crisis, I just can't shake this image of him sniggering a trolling social media message to Justin into his cell phone, pretending to be hiding behind an airplane seat, while clearly his staff is filming him doing the post. And then there are the Liberals, a party that tries so hard to be everything to everyone that you never really know what you are voting for. The Green Party has a foothold on the coasts and in Ontario, but has yet to elect a voice on the prairies. Who knows, maybe Riding Mountain is ground zero for real change. And all of the platform points are listed in the paper today and would also be listed on the party's websites. Local attractions get promotional boost. Local attractions like the Margaret Lawrence House are getting a promotional boost from the province of Manitoba. Sport, Culture, Heritage and Tourism Minister Nellie Kennedy recently announced a $4.2 million increase to Travel Manitoba, the provincial agency responsible for marketing Manitoba to Canada and the world. Kennedy made the announcement at the Winnipeg Art Gallery in front of the gallery's Inuit carving collection. Kennedy, who grew up in rural Manitoba, wanted to make sure that rural Manitoba was fairly represented when it came time to market provincial events and attractions. It's Travel Manitoba, right? Not Travel Winnipeg, she told media after the announcement. There are so many amazing places to see that aren't within Winnipeg. She also noted that for 2025, the boost in spending for Travel Manitoba accompanies other incentives for Manitobans. For example, entry to provincial parks like Spruce Woods, Rivers, and Duck Mountain are free all year long. This is just one more incentive to Manitobans to take a staycation this year, said Kennedy. The funding boost comes at a time when many Canadians are frustrated and angered by U.S. tariffs and looking at ways of taking their vacation closer to home. So far this year, U.S. border data shows the number of Canadians returning to Manitoba from neighboring North Dakota and Minnesota by car dropped 18% compared to last year. In February, right after President Trump first announced the tariffs, border crossings that month reached lows not seen since travel restrictions loosened after the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic. Choosing the Kwamajuka Gallery for the press conference held some important significance. As part of its funding increase, the province is requiring that 10% of the new money go to Indigenous tourism. Manitoba is home to many authentic and meaningful Indigenous experiences, and this funding will help us support their growth and showcase them to the world, said Indigenous Tourism Manitoba CEO Holly Corshane. She added that including Indigenous-led outdoor adventures like paddling, fishing, hiking, and hunting to the list of Manitoba adventures continues to be a powerful pathway to reconciliation. Colin Ferguson, President and CEO of Travel Manitoba, considers vacationing in Manitoba a good investment in our own economy. Manitoba is home to incredible heart-stirring tourism experiences, and this funding will help us support their growth and showcase them to the world, said Indigenous Tourism Manitoba CEO Holly Corshane. The new money will complement the promotional work already being done by the Town of Virden and RM of Wallace Woodworth, who formed a joint tourism board in the summer of 2019. Prairie Gateway Tourism works with local councils to develop and implement tourism opportunities. In Manitoba, the impact of tourism is felt province-wide. In 2023, the province welcomed 10.4 million visitors who spent approximately $1.82 billion. To learn about local tourism opportunities or for more information on events or attractions, go to neepawatourism.ca or check out the Travel Manitoba website at travelmanitoba.com. There's a large ad for the Neepawa Area Collegiate's major production of Aladdin on Thursday, May 8th, Friday, May 9th, Saturday, May 10th matinee, Saturday, May 10th in the evening. The location will be at the Roxy Theatre, and tickets are available only online from onstagedirect.com. There's obituaries this week for Teresa Suze. A service will be held Friday, April 25th in Amaranth. An obituary for Doreen Sykes, who passed away at Country Meadows on March 18th. A family private service will be held at a later date. Obituary for Gerald Buchanan. A graveside service will take place at Riverside Cemetery at a later date. And an obituary for Dudley Ford, whose service was held on April 17th. Green Team Given Green for Upcoming Projects by Josh Jackson. The Government of Manitoba recently announced it is investing up to $7.6 million in the Urban Hometown Green Team program, which helps create summer employment opportunities for Manitoba's youth. The province offers grants to nonprofit organizations, education authorities, Northern Affairs community councils, and municipal governments to hire youth between the ages of 15 and 29 to work on community projects between May and September. The infusion of cash means an increase of $1.3 million, or 20.6%, to the 2025-26 Green Team Youth Employment Program budget, according to a press release. This year, the province will see 610 projects funded, and it plans to employ approximately 1,900 young Manitobans. The government said they are focusing the funding on projects in designated community rural renewal areas and Manitoba accredited camps, projects that offer full-time employment opportunities, projects that build leadership opportunities and employment skills for youth, and projects that demonstrate community need and partnerships. The province provides this funding to improve neighborhoods, promote community involvement, and help develop young leaders. The projects also aid in stimulating local economic activity and bolstering job creation in urban and rural communities. Over $52,000 of funding was distributed to 6 organizations around the Neepawa community, including the Beautiful Plains Recreation Commission Project Committee Incorporated for Day Camp, Grounds Maintenance and Trails, the Neepawa District Centennial Project Committee for Building Maintenance, Community Beautification, Grounds Maintenance and Events, the Neepawa District Chamber of Commerce for tourism events preparation, marketing, data collection, and multimedia production, and the Town of Neepawa for grounds maintenance, building maintenance, trails, and community beautification. Elsewhere in the Neepawa banner and press coverage area, the Town of Minnedosa received $33,000 for grounds maintenance, public works, and day camps. The Town of Rivers received $14,000 for maintenance, community beautification, trails, and day camps. Two organizations in Carberry were awarded over $18,000 for grounds maintenance, public works, and day camps. And the RM of Gladstone was given nearly $17,000 for office work, building maintenance, grounds maintenance, and day camps. Beautiful Plains Archives. The Green Machines team photo is dated to June of 1980. The team consisted of youths aged 10 and 11 and was coached by Alex Venn and Mrs. Bill Borsma. Please allow me to reintroduce myself, an article by Owen Devereaux. From time to time, it's in the best interest of even the most well-established and well-regarded of businesses to reintroduce themselves to the community. That's exactly what Mazer Group did on April 16th as it hosted the Neepawa District Chamber of Commerce's Business After 5. This event is held every month and provides an informal networking evening for our local business community. Bill Moran, the parts manager with Mazer Group, told the banner and press they were happy to participate in the chamber organized evening. He added that as a still relatively new management group, it is very important to get into the community and make contacts. These kinds of events are really important to Service Manager Chris Brond and myself to show a different face to the community and that we want to be partners with them. The Mazer Group top left was the host location for the Neepawa's most recent Chamber After 5 event. Plenty of conversation was enjoyed by all in attendance while also getting reacquainted with the business. A photo of crocuses in bloom near Arden. Neepawa banner and press staff member Josh Jackson photographed these beautiful crocuses recently. They were found in the Arden area and were still dappled with raindrops after some rainy river had passed over. The Sandhills Golf and Country Clubs host their annual meeting on Wednesday, April 16th. The club completed some significant upgrades in 2024 to the golf course and clubhouse with no added debt. The CSGCC is planning a fundraiser, raffling off a new golf cart, and tickets are available from Corey Martin at 204-281-7290. A large photo of the Easter Bunny trotting through Minnedosa. On Thursday, April 17th, the Easter Bunny took a ride through Minnedosa on a trusty steed by the name of Blueberry. The Easter Bunny was accompanied by the crew of K.S. Hunter's Barbershop and made various stops throughout the town to spread Easter joy. An announcement that the Beautiful Plains School Division is attending a developmental screening day Thursday in Carberry, Tuesday, May the 6th at Arts Forward in Neepawa, Wednesday, May the 2nd at Arts Forward in Neepawa. The screening day is free to all families. Help the Community One Cookie at a Time by Josh Jackson. Residents of the Neepawa area are encouraged to treat themselves to a cookie that will end up helping a local cause. Tim Hortons is once again hosting its Smile Cookie Week from April 28th to May the 4th, with the proceeds of the Neepawa location going to the Beautiful Plains Community Foundation, while the proceeds in Gladstone go to the Gladstone Area Senior Support Program. Those with a sweet tooth or who want to help a local cause can head to the Fast Food Giant from April 28th to May 4th, 2025 and purchase your cookies. Out with the cold and in with the new in Winnipeg. News and notes from around the Manitoba Junior Hockey League. The Winnipeg Freeze are no more, sort of, not that they will be missed. In terms of expansion franchises, the Freeze continually underwhelmed with a roster that struggled against most other Junior A rosters in the MJHL. The Freeze have been rebranded the Winnipeg Monarchs with a new color scheme and a new logo. a photo of a lion wearing a crown. And one last article, Northern Manitoba take 2-1 series lead in the Turnbull Cup final. The Northern Manitoba Blizzard scored by committee, while Tay Timmerman made 27 saves to help the Blizzard win 4-2 in Game 3, taking a 2-1 series lead over the Dauphin Kings in the McMunn & Yates Turnbull Cup final. It was the Blizzard who would open the scoring in Game 3 on a short-handed marker. Cale Primanti created a turnover at the blue line and went to the backhand. Thank you.